Don't open that door! I froze. My hand was still gripping the doorknob, my breath caught somewhere between my lungs and my throat. The door was already ajar, just enough to reveal papers scattered across the floor like fallen leaves, strange symbols scrawled across the walls, and a photograph of a man I'd never seen before, perched high on what looked like an altar. But it wasn't the eerie decor that stopped my heart. It was the list. Taped above the cluttered desk, written in thick, dark ink, was a single sheet of paper titled Obstacles to Ascension. And there it was. My name, Mildred Bennett. Then I saw her, Clara, my daughter, or at least the woman wearing her face. She stood in the doorway like a statue, pale and rigid, her once warm hazel eyes now dim and far away, like she was looking through me instead of at me. Her lips curled slightly, but there was no affection in her voice, only a biting sharpness I'd never heard before. "You'll never see me again," she said slowly, deliberately. "You're dead to me." I stood there, stunned. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. My brain struggled to understand what my heart refused to believe. 3 months earlier, I'd still been clinging to the comfort of routine. I'd been a widow for 5 years, and though I missed Frank every day, I had made peace with the quiet life we used to fill together. Sundays were always for family lunch. Clara and I would cook together, laugh, argue about garlic, and fall asleep on the couch watching old movies. But lately, nothing. No calls, no visits, just silence and the hum of unanswered messages. At first I told myself she was just busy. Then I blamed the new husband. Evan was charming on the outside, no doubt about that. Clean-cut, ambitious, spoke with a sort of performative calm that always felt a little too rehearsed. But Clara had loved him, and I wanted to trust her judgment. That trust began to fray after the wedding. She started sending clipped, overly formal texts that sounded like they'd been written by a stranger. "Thank you for your concern. I am focusing on my spiritual development," she'd written one day. Then she returned the invitation to our anniversary dinner with a note. "We are currently in retreat. We regretfully cannot attend." It was the coldness that hurt the most. I started to wonder if I had done something wrong, if I'd held on too tightly, if loving her the way I did was somehow a burden to her now. But I couldn't stop wondering, what was really going on behind that silence? I never imagined the answer would be so strange or so terrifying. What I discovered that day led me down a path I never imagined, a journey into darkness and back. If you've ever loved someone and felt them slip away, this story is for you. Please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here. I told myself it was just a phase. That's what you do when the truth is too big to hold all at once. You shrink it down into something manageable, something survivable. At the hospital reunion, surrounded by women I used to share 12-hour shifts and break room coffee with, I smiled and nodded through their stories about their grown children, grandkids, weddings, family vacations. Then Diane, always the cheerful instigator, looked my way and said, "Mildred, your turn. How's Clara? What's she up to these days?" My throat tightened. I reached for my water glass to stall. "She's doing well," I said, forcing a smile so practiced I almost believed it myself. "Very busy with work. We don't get to talk as much lately." They all nodded politely, not pushing. Only Carol, who had known me for over 30 years, reached across the table and gently squeezed my hand. "That's too bad," she said quietly. Frank would have been disappointed. He adored her. I nodded, keeping my face still as my insides crumbled. When I got home, I found the birthday card I'd sent Clara sitting in my mailbox, marked return to sender. No note, no explanation. Just rejection, stamped and sealed. And then on my birthday, a text message buzzed in at 7:08 a.m. Not a call, not a voice, just cold words glowing on the screen. "Gratitude for your role in my physical existence. May your earthly journey continue in alignment." It didn't sound like her. It didn't even sound human. That night, I sat in the dark with a glass of wine and typed the words I'd been too afraid to search, the path of ascension. The website was polished, professional. Pictures of glowing people in white linen robes, waterfalls, mountains, words like transcendence and liberation. All the testimonials read the same, like they were scripted. I never knew who I was until I found the path. I clicked through until I found the forums. That's when the chill set in. Dozens of stories, sons, daughters, siblings, vanishing into this so-called path. families torn apart, bank accounts emptied, personalities erased. Some used the word cult, others said high-demand group, but they all spoke of the same pattern: isolation, dependence, control. And Clara fit that pattern too well. I couldn't sleep after that. I tossed, turned, stared at the ceiling until 3 a.m. when I finally made up my mind. I would go see her, in person. I would look into her eyes and find my daughter again, no matter what she was hiding. So I baked her a cinnamon cake, her favorite, the one she asked for every year on her birthday until she was 23. I drove from Ohio to Chicago with the cake seatbelted beside me. When I arrived at her townhouse, Evan answered the door. "Mildred," he said, his smile tight. "What a surprise." He stood in the doorway just long enough to make me feel unwelcome before stepping aside. "Clara's in purification meditation," he added. "These sessions can't be interrupted." The house didn't feel like Clara anymore. The warm yellows and soft blues were gone. The shelves were bare. No family photos, no art. Just white walls, pale floors, and symbols. Triangles with eyes, sun rays etched into corners and framed on the walls like some cryptic language. When Clara finally emerged, I felt the breath leave my body. She was thinner, gaunt almost. Her once thick brown hair had been shaved in places. There were deep shadows beneath her eyes. And when she hugged me, her body stayed stiff, her arms barely grazing mine. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" I whispered as I held her frail frame. "I've never been better," she replied in a voice that wasn't hers. At lunch, if you could call it that, we sat at a glass table and ate flavorless boiled vegetables. Evan talked incessantly about the guide, the mission, and spiritual detachment. Clara barely spoke, except to echo him. When I mentioned her father, I saw a flicker in her face. A crack, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "Past attachments are anchors," Evan said smoothly. "Letting go is part of her evolution." That's when I noticed the faint bruise beneath her collarbone. "What happened?" I asked. "Oh," Evan replied before Clara could speak. "A minor reaction during the last liberation. Nothing serious." It took everything in me not to scream. As I left, I lingered near an open window and heard Evan's voice behind it, sharp and low. "Your mother is holding you back," he snapped. "The sooner we sever that tie, the faster you'll ascend." I sat in my car outside their home, hands trembling so badly I could barely turn the key. My daughter, my Clara, was vanishing before my eyes, and I was the only one who seemed to notice. 2 days later, I broke down in Dr. Wallace's office during my annual checkup. She listened, truly listened, then gently placed her hand on mine. "You need support too, Mildred. You can't carry this alone." She referred me to a therapist and a local support group for seniors facing family estrangement. I went. I listened. I cried. And I realized I wasn't alone, but I still didn't have Clara back. One sleepless night, I joined a private online support forum, one for families of people caught in spiritual coercion groups. That's where I met Lauren. "My sister's been gone for 2 years," she wrote. "She looks alive, but she isn't there anymore. They isolate you until you forget who you were." Then she wrote something that stopped me cold. "Your daughter isn't gone, Mildred. She's just hidden underneath the programming. You can still reach her, if you're willing to go far enough." There's a kind of pain so sharp, it slices straight through denial. After weeks of hoping Clara would come back to me on her own, I finally accepted what I didn't want to believe. She was in too deep, and if I didn't act, I would lose her forever. Dr. Harris, the deprogramming specialist I consulted, didn't offer false hope. His voice was calm but firm. "Confrontation won't work," he said. "They've conditioned her to see you as the enemy. Surface-level acceptance is your only bridge back to her." That word, acceptance, tasted bitter. But I knew what he meant. I had to stop being her mother and become someone they wanted. With legal advice, I safeguarded every account, every asset, and quietly began my transformation. Mildred Bennett became Margaret Weston, a wealthy widow from Oregon looking for spiritual renewal. I changed my hair, my voice, even my walk. I rehearsed the role until it became muscle memory. Then I registered for a 3-day Ascension workshop in Detroit, the same program that had pulled Clara into its grip. Phones were forbidden. We slept little, ate less, and endured hours of chanting and psychological drills disguised as energy realignment. Any sign of skepticism was met with gentle correction and public shaming. They called it cleansing. On day 2, Evan walked in. He didn't recognize me, not right away. But I recognized him, the charming predator cloaked in spiritual rhetoric. He watched me during the sessions, circling like a hawk. Later, I overheard him call me high-yield potential. That night, I learned Clara was scheduled to be relocated to a retreat center in Costa Rica, permanently. My time was running out. So I planted the bait. I mentioned to a facilitator that I was considering a major donation, somewhere around $500,000 if I felt aligned. By morning, I received an invitation to a private elevation dinner with Marcus Reed, the founder of the Path of Ascension. The dinner was lavish. Reed spoke about detachment, freedom from identity, and the sacred act of surrendering assets. I played the part well, interested, obedient, curious. After dessert, I was pulled into a separate room. Reed and Evan were waiting. Reed smiled tightly. "You've been very convincing, Mrs. Weston. Or should I say, Mrs. Bennett." A tablet screen lit up, footage of me inside Clara's home. They had surveillance. They knew. "You have two options," Reed said calmly. "Sign this document giving Clara full autonomy and walk away, or refuse and she'll be flown to Costa Rica tomorrow, no access, no contact." My heart pounded, but my hands didn't shake. I took the pen and signed. Because I wasn't just signing away a lie, I was recording it. Pinned to my blouse was a brooch fitted with a miniature camera. Every word, every threat, captured. That night, I used a burner phone in the hotel bathroom to send the footage to an FBI contact. Then I typed the message I'd rehearsed 100 times. "Tomorrow, 10 o'clock a.m., I'll be inside their headquarters. That's when you move." The morning sun was just beginning to rise as I stood outside the glass-paneled headquarters of Ascended Illumination. I could see my reflection in the polished windows, older, yes, and tired, but unbreakable. I had come with one thing, a final offer. Inside, Reed and Evan waited, their smiles thin and watchful. "I'm here to make a deal," I said. "My house, my savings, my entire retirement, all of it. In exchange for one condition, Clara stays in the United States." Evan scoffed. "You're in no position to negotiate." But Reed raised a hand, studying me with the cold curiosity of a collector. "And why would we accept that?" "Because I'm more valuable to you than her, and I can bring more just like me." It was true, at least it sounded true. I knew how to say what they needed to hear. A tense silence followed. Then Reed nodded. "Bring her in." The moment Clara entered, my breath caught. She looked thinner than ever, eyes vacant, movements robotic. But somewhere inside that shell, my daughter still lived. I lowered my voice, soft, familiar. "Clara, remember what Dad used to say about the birds?" She blinked, confused. "When the nest is threatened, the mother bird pretends to be hurt to lead the predator away." A flicker, a twitch of her mouth, a shiver of recognition in her eyes. Then, "FBI, nobody move." The room erupted in chaos as agents stormed the building, guns drawn, voices sharp. Reed and Evan were cuffed on the spot. I tore through the hallway, heart racing, searching, and then I found her. Clara, cornered by a handler, panic in her eyes, not knowing who to trust. "Sweetheart," I called, "it's over. You're safe." She hesitated. "When the nest is threatened," I said again, slowly. Her eyes locked onto mine. "The mother bird pretends to be injured." She ran into my arms. The spell had broken. What followed wasn't quick or easy. Clara began therapy under Dr. Harris. There were nights filled with screaming, mornings with trembling hands and dark, haunted eyes. She mourned what she'd done, what she'd almost lost. I stayed, every day, holding her hand through every storm. Until one day, she asked for pancakes. The next, she hummed while folding laundry. Then, a week later, she laughed at an old family joke, the music of her return, note by note. 6 months later, we sat together on the porch, our porch. Clara's hair was growing back. Her eyes were alive again. "You gave up everything for me," she said quietly. I smiled. Any mother would. "No," she shook her head, tears brimming. "Most would have let go, but you found me." I didn't tell this story to relive the pain. I told it because someone out there needs to hear it. Someone who's watching their child slip away. Someone who's standing in that quiet hallway, afraid to open the door. You're not powerless. You don't need to scream. You just need a plan, and love fierce enough to see it through. I found a strength I didn't know I had. And if you're in the dark right now, you can too. Thank you for listening. Please Please subscribe, share your own story in the comments, and remember, your voice matters more than you think.